Right, welcome to the Public Works and Protective Services Committee meeting of November 18th. We do acknowledge that we appreciate being able to share this land with our First Nations neighbors. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any questions? All in favor? We have a presentation tonight from Lavinia Rojas about a resolution to the AVICC and the UBCM about a province-wide ban on consumer fireworks. So ladies, if you'd like to come up to the microphone and give us a little introduction.
Good evening, council members. I am pleased to learn about your decision to ban fireworks in your municipality. Thank you for prioritizing your community. I respectfully ask for your consideration. I better put my glasses on. Sorry. Okay. I respectfully ask for your consideration and request that the City Council explore the possibility of putting forward a resolution to the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities, AVEC, this upcoming April 2025 regarding a potential province-wide ban on fireworks. This proposed resolution aims to address the growing concerns shared by many communities about the impact of fireworks on public safety, wildlife, pets, birds, and environment. The time has come to move beyond piecemeal restrictions and adopt a wide ban on fireworks. It is crucial that we prioritize safety and well-being by allowing only licensed professionals to display fireworks in our two celebrations, New Year and Victoria Day. Various organizations, the BC Association of Chiefs of Police, local fire chiefs, and all animal organizations support fireworks bans due to safety and environmental concerns. Municipalities that still permit fireworks are increasingly seen as outliers. Fireworks can be extremely stressful for individuals with PTSD, autism, and those with heightened sensory perception, often leading to anxiety, disorientation, and panic attacks. The environmental hazards are significant, with fireworks releasing harmful chemicals, heavy metals, and particulate matter into the air and water, affecting both human health and local ecosystems. The effects on animals can be devastating. There have been tragic incidents where dogs have died from fireworks-related stress. Some dogs have been hit by cars, and one dog was hit by a train in Vancouver. Larger animals, like horses, have been euthanized due to severe injuries caused by fireworks-induced panic. The sudden disturbance can disorient birds, especially at night. This disorientation can lead to fatal outcomes, with birds colliding with buildings, cars, trees, and other obstacles. In one tragic incident, about 5,000 red-winged blackbirds died on New Year's Eve 2010 when professional-grade fireworks were illegally set off in Arkansas, USA. Hundreds of birds, primarily starlings, were found dead on the street of Rome. This incident was described as a massacre by animal rights groups. Winter fireworks can be more problematic, as some bird species roost together in large groups during colder months. In conclusion, fireworks pose a significant threat to bird populations, causing both immediate distress and long-term behavioral changes that can impact their survival. I hear that cats must be kept indoors due to their impact on bird hunting, but some don't seem to consider the horror that fireworks cause to alien wildlife. Many cities in BC have already implemented bans on consuming fireworks. These are Vancouver, the city of North Vancouver, Richmond, West Vancouver, and Port Moody. I am proud to inform you that one of the countries that fireworks has been banned is Chile, the country where I was born and raised. Many residents believe that the temporary enjoyment of fireworks does not outweigh these harms. I believe live display instead of fireworks at any time. And if you allow me, I would like to read a letter that I received from the BC SPCA a few years ago. Thank you for your consideration. Each year, our shelters receive scores of stray animals that have become lost to firework blasts. Veterinarians inform us of examples of animals that require treatment because of injuries sustained from being frightened by firework blast. Some animals are particularly fearful and panic and run into traffic, or cattle and horses charge through barbed wire fences. Particularly distressing is that cats become permanently separated from their guardians because they end up in our shelters and cannot be returned to their guardians because they lack identification or worse, left wandering on the streets. Not only this is an animal welfare problem, but unnecessary strains in the limited resources humane organizations must incur to assist the animal victims. Even more serious is that our provincial constables have had to deal with intentional cruelty from individuals that direct class at animals. Further, in a recent case, a youth inserted a firecracker in the rectum of a cat. And I am hoping that the chief of the fire department will support us. And I know the BCSPCA also will. What else is there? There was another one. The police, of course.
Police, yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for listening to our concerns. I will be brief, as much has already been said, and you received materials we sent you. Only a comprehensive provincial ban can address the issues of fireworks uniformly and effectively throughout our communities. Such a ban would eliminate confusion about where and when fireworks are allowed, streamline enforcement efforts, prevent the exploitation of differing municipal regulations, and ensure consistent protection for all residents, animals, and environments across the province. I would like to give you a few examples of damage that fireworks have caused. An estimated 40% of BC wildfires are started by human activities, which of course includes fireworks. Just this July in Nanaimo, fireworks set off by a group of young people sparked a fire in Piper's Lagoon Park, an ecologically sensitive space. Injuries are also common every year. In one instance, a teen in Vancouver was hurt when a firework blew up in his hand. The noise of fireworks seriously affects animals and our beloved pets. Horses on a BC farm have panicked and injured themselves trying to flee from fireworks noise. They broke through fences, sustaining cuts, broken bones, and worse. Dogs in urban areas have escaped yards and terror, getting lost and hit by cars. Nesting seabirds have abandoned their nests en masse when startled by fireworks, leaving eggs and chicks vulnerable. My Victoria birds resting in Metro Vancouver parks have become disoriented by fireworks, resulting in them flying into buildings at night. And, humans are also affected. Refugees in Vancouver from war-torn countries have told about panic attacks and PTSD triggered by unexpected fireworks sounds. And I've also heard some stories about our war veterans being affected. Sadly, we all have a few examples of our own about the effects of fireworks. Let's do something about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your name, please.
Oh, Andrea Miller.
Thank you. Okay. Council, do you have any questions for Andrea or Lavinia? Mr. Schuker? If you could just come back to the mic, one of you, and we have maybe some questions for you.
Great. Thank you for your presentation.
You're very welcome.
I'm sensing that we'd be pretty much aligned with your message to some degree. We've taken steps to ban the use of fireworks, and I think in large part in response to concerns we've had from livestock owners. So yeah, we've certainly heard local concerns. But a question for you, sounds to me like you're probably going to other local governments in the CRD.
Yes,
Can you tell me?
yes, we went to Victoria already,
Okay.
and we're going to View Royal tomorrow, and I believe we're planning to go to Langford.
Well,
and
I'm still waiting for...
we're waiting for some confirmations, but yeah, we're planning to go to all of the ones in the CRD, if not in person like tonight, by letter or Zoom or something.
Okay. Have you had a positive response in terms of a resolution, or have they?
We just went to Victoria was our first one. That was just on Thursday, so we haven't heard back. You're our second, and so hopefully we'll hear something soon, maybe from you.
Yeah.
The thing about it's good that each community does a ban, but it's not really comprehensive, and a lot of times it's not being enforced. So that's why we're here, to see if maybe if it was provincial wide, if that would be more effective.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay. Any other questions?
I would like to say something.
Sure.
My understanding is that when we have organizations such as the BCSPCA, the Sarah Herring, she is the person, what do you call it? She has the authorization with the provincial government to do recommendations, and also speak at the union of municipalities, because essentially what we want is to end up union of municipalities, where they will make it a vote, but you probably know all this, to send it to the provincial government for the consideration. So, but for that, we need to have organizations backing up. So I have talked to Sarah Herrings. I have the police chief, and unfortunately the chief of fire, Roger Hollander, he is away. He's coming back on Wednesday, and I'm hoping to get his letter, and I will email it to you, because we need to have that in order to go into the next step, which is AVIC, where they will vote, and to go to Vancouver for the conference next year.
Okay, well, thank you, and thank you very much for coming.
You're very welcome.
All right, moving on to participation. Anyone like to speak for this meeting tonight?
So hello, my name is Anna Whiting. I live on Arden Road. To go towards the conversation of fireworks on this topic, I'd like to present myself as the Vice President of the Metros and Equestrian Society. January 1st this year, we had one of our members injured due to fireworks being set off on the property directly next door to hers. The new residents to that property were not fully aware of the impact that the fireworks had, and they had not drawn a permit, much like every other person who has set off fireworks in our municipality in the past 10 years. From what I understand, there's been one person that has asked for a permit, and there has been absolutely more than one person setting off fireworks in our community. These fireworks are set off not just on the day, which allows equestrians the ability to put ear stuffies, to sedate, to make our animals as safe as possible when they are freaking out. These animals are about 1,200 pounds on average and can really seriously hurt themselves, hurt others, get loose and cause havoc, and just generally not safe. So on behalf of the Metchosin Equestrian Society, I would like to suggest that either, yes, a full ban, seeing as the permit system is not operating as intended, would be greatly appreciated, or at the very least, a much better community awareness program be stood up to make people aware of why setting off fireworks 2 days before Halloween or 3 days after Halloween, because it's conveniently not on like a Wednesday, would make a lot of sense. Gives us animal owners a better chance to support our creatures and make it safe for the community in whole.
Great, thank you very much.
Beth Bacon, Metchosin resident, and I wholeheartedly support the move for a province-wide ban on fireworks. And I'm speaking for the wild animals, the domestic animals, and the pets. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in public participation? All right, with that, we'll move on to adoption of minutes. We have the Public Works and Productive Services Committee meeting of October 21st. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Gray. Any discussion?
Just might suggest we add the word in the very final, next to last motion. It reads the concept that we support in principle the concept of Metchosin Wellness Collective, and I think it was the concept of the Metchosin Wellness Collective rental. It was the idea that they were looking to rent a room at the school.
I'm not sure. Was it? Or was it just that we support the idea that they're what they are planning to do?
Don't know, but we did discuss it, that I think they're planning to rent a spot at the school.
Right.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the proposal, like what they're actually proposing. So I thought we were discussing the rental. I think either way, but just to remember, we are hoping to rent a room.
Ms. Miller, what do you think?
Make a motion to amend the minutes if needed.
Sure. All right. We can.
I thought it was, we liked the whole concept.
Yeah.
And with that, we were interested in them renting. But I think it was the whole concept that wellness center in Metchosin would be greatly appreciated. I thought that's what the discussion was.
Yeah, I thought that was too, because we did direct staff to proceed with negotiations regarding a possible rental.
I'm good with that.
Oh, okay.
Just if
All right.
it helped
Thank you.
for anybody to know what we were up to.
Okay. Any other discussion on that one? Okay, call a question. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And then the next meeting, I do have a couple of corrections on the Healthy Community Advisory Select Committee meeting on October 22nd, 7A and 7C. Find it here. 7A, it does mention the Wellness Collective proposal, and it says 2 physiotherapists, which should say 2 massage therapists.
Thanks, that was kind of what I was getting at.
Yes, and then further down under 7C, mentions an online music night under the seniors notice, and it says Dan Gallant, but it's Dave.
I'll move a seat.
Okay, moved by Councillor Gray, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Discussion? Councillor Donaldson.
So on same section of what you're referring to there, 7E, it says working with Juana Fuca to provide more community for safety. What is Juana Fuca? What agency?
It's referring to the West Shore Parks and Rec. I
Okay.
think instead of, yeah, we should change that one too. All right, anything else? All right, call the question, all in favor? It's passed. All right, so we can right on to councillor's update. Not too long, I know we're going to have a long meeting tonight, likely. So just to mention, with Public Works, I just, for the community to be a little bit patient with the guys. I think the last windstorm that we had, I know there was a lot of trees down and a lot of issues, and you know they do get to things as soon as they possibly can. So if there are complaints, just leave a message at the office if possible, and they'll get to your issue as soon as they can. So with the Chosen Senior Association, just make note they're putting on the annual this last year and this year anyway, Holiday Lights Tour in an LA limo bus. So that's December 18th. This time it's going to be for seniors only. The tickets are $25. And we did get a response from both Rogers and TELUS regarding cell service. So, you know, it was nice to hear back from them that they did receive our letter and appreciated it. And, well, you never know, it can't hurt anyway. Recent workshops that we've had included the Municipal Protected Areas Project. It was an online meeting, and Councillor Shukin and I think both were at the watched that one. It did have some interesting things, and that possibly might pertain to the buffer land about mostly the BC Federation of Naturalists and the Canada Protected Areas database. Which, you know, there's just a few things about that be worth looking into. The other workshop was out, and it sounds like the way I wrote it, like the dumping was at the Saanich Fairgrounds, but it was the actual workshop on illegal field dumping. And the CRD was at the fairgrounds, sponsored by the Peninsula and Area Agricultural Commission. There was some points I'll quickly run through. There was a lot of points. It was a really an informative workshop. But that a lot of them mentioned, the bylaw officers and the other officials that were there, that many of our municipal bylaws regarding soil dumping are years out of date, which makes it difficult for enforcement. And when people are creating new bylaws, the Agricultural Land Commission staff will provide comments and recommendations, so it ensures consistency with the ALC Act. One thing I never knew was that the term clean fill, which we always kind of think that that's going to be okay, dirt or whatever to put on our property, it's not defined or approved under the ALC Act, so something to be aware of if someone wants to bring some fill onto your property. Because the majority of the ALC files are on illegal, unauthorized soil dumping or removal. One of the bylaw officers says that compliance has become very difficult in the last few years. People are more willing to fight. And one comment they had about that was that we should be ticketing every day until they finally decide to pay it, and if they don't, then it's time to put a notice on their property, on the title, so that at least when they go to sell, you know, that will be there for the future. They thought it was very important to have consistency across the municipalities as far as our bylaws. One thing to look at possibly would be the city of Richmond, because there was a couple of reps there from Richmond, and they spent a long time working on their new soil bylaw, and one of the comments in that was that they charged volume fees for fill. And those are most points that I picked up about it, but it was really worthwhile. Councillor Shukin.
Thanks, Councillor. Great observations. And it was neat to hang out with you and Councillor Donaldson for the afternoon. I think it was a great program. I just want to tip my hat to Ron Tunnicliffe, who organized it on behalf of the Peninsula Agricultural Areas Commission. Thank you, Pat. And also Sasha Kubicek, who was there as well. There was a number of Metchosin residents. I thought one of the highlights for me was meeting the ALC staff. And, you know, I sense very much they're diligent. They're often hamstrung, though, just because of the complexity of the situation, but also some of the time it takes to really bring out some of the enforcement tools. So, yeah, that was great. One thing about the city of Richmond, I think it was Richmond, they have a soil deposit bylaw officer. that's his job, is to look at soil deposit. He was there and provided great insights to the group, so thanks.
That's good. Yes, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, the one big takeaway for me was, as well as meeting all these different officers, it was a cross-section of people. We had developers there, we had truckers there, all sorts of people. Lots of farmers, of course, and many residents from Metchosin were there, so that was cool. Similar to what we did with the dog working group, the suggestion that came out when we did our breakout sessions is the sharing of knowledge. And so when we looked at our animal bylaw here, we also looked at the CRD animal bylaw. And so the scope of information that we gathered to create this bylaw now is being used even in other municipalities. This is something that actually stood out here with the table that we were at with how to do enforcement, that sort of thing. Because for the officers to be able to go to one municipality and another, and the rules are a little bit different, but if they had more of an even playing field as far as everybody working from the same song sheet and sharing that knowledge. So if we're getting people, and right now, even though it's out of season, there are a lot of dump trucks coming into Metchosin dumping material of some sort. We don't know what the material is, so there's no permitting on the other end, whatever community they're coming from, what's that soil that's coming into our community. And so if we had that conversation with our neighboring communities, and we've got really good relations with our mayors right now, and we have with our colleagues in those communities, if we start sharing that knowledge and working together to have a better bylaw, similar maybe to Richmond as an option, I don't know, but it would make it much easier for these people to do their jobs and to have community awareness. We talk about community awareness with fireworks and such, but this council has actually put the information in the Muse as to, because somebody asked me if they could get aggregate in for their paddock, for their horse or their cows, and actually it says there in the last Muse that you cannot bring in gravel. Clean or not, doesn't really matter, you just cannot bring in any kind of aggregate at this time of year. So the knowledge isn't out there for everyone, including within our own scope of Metchosin residents. So working with our neighboring municipalities certainly would be a benefit, or even across the CRD.
Well, thanks. One other thing of note was that when someone is getting a permit to remove or bring in soil, is that we should know where that soil is coming from and where it's going, just to add an extra layer. Anyway, Councillor Gray.
Yeah, just a question. It sounds like it was a useful workshop and great information. Is there some action that might come from this? Should we send this, are we interested in asking staff or asking the Ag Committee, or what might be done? I hear there's holes in the system and maybe we need to plug some of those holes.
Well, for me, I think we've got, we do have some bylaws on tap that we're trying to get through. I think once we get those done, then maybe it's time, maybe in our strategic plan, we can start looking at some other bylaws that might need to be updated, or some things for the future. Councillor Sheehan.
Just a response to Councillor Gray. The Robin team at PAC, we're going to draft a next steps approach. What I heard right at the end there was the need for intermunicipal cohesion and like a working together.
The consistency was important.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So I think they are working on something, and see where it goes. So.
Right. Okay, the vegetarian chili was really good too. All right, moving on to correspondence, and what we have is the letter from Ms. Rojas about the fireworks. So I'd like to make a motion that we do support this, the possibility of a resolution going to the AVICC and the UBCM. We'll see how it progresses with the other municipalities. Okay, so I moved that and seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any discussion?
I have an edge of misgiving about moving ahead with this too quickly, but I'll bury it for now. I will support the motion. The one thing to maybe do is just keep on top of who else is supporting this. the only misgiving I have is that we speak with more of a collective voice than just Metchosin. So just making others aware of, or being aware of what else is going on out there. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's sort of the first step toward that. So, any other discussion on it? Okay, call question. All in favor? That is passed. Right, we have no other business, so motion to adjourn. Moved by Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. All in favor? Sit.
I would just like to say good night. Tomorrow we are speaking at U Royal, and I think we will have an answer by tomorrow.
Great.
I think they will.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Charlie. It doesn't mention anywhere that there's a rental going on. So that was my point. Negotiations for rental. So it's kind of confusing as a reference or decision. I didn't realize at the time.
Yeah.
Right, that was actually.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. I will call to order the Community Planning Committee meeting for Monday, November 18th, and I'll just acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, including our near neighbors, the Channel Nation, and also the Sauk First Nation. So committee, we have an agenda before us. I have we have some pinks that we'll add to correspondence from a number of people that have come in throughout the day. And I also just want to do a supplement, just a minor addition to the agenda, which Miss Penny Stone from the Victoria Humane Society is here, and I'm going to ask if we can give her 4 minutes during item 7B to just address Humane Society matters and their plans for the land. So
I'll move adoption of the agenda as amended.
Okay, great. Seconded, and all in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, we have no presentations, and before we get to public participation, I just wanted to make a few brief comments. As we've had in several meetings now, we have a number of interesting topics before us tonight, but I wanted to make a quick comment on agenda item 7A, which is the Interim Housing Needs Report, or the HNR. So the HNR has been prepared by our planner, who followed the requirements set out by provincial regulation. And our planner, Mr. Johnson, will walk us through the report further into the meeting. As I think we all know, the development of the HNR has become his provincial law last year with the passage of Bill 44 and other related legislation. The provisions in Bill 44 are now embedded in the Local Government Act and supporting regulation, which the district is subject to. The requirements emerging from Bill 44 include formally receiving the Housing Needs Report before January 1st, 2025, bringing the Housing Needs Report, and particularly the 20-year housing projections, into our official community plan, and then looking at land use bylaws in relation to the same 20-year target. Now, I have no reason to doubt that the HNR has been prepared, meeting all provincial requirements. That said, I realize that the results of the H&R have set off alarm bells in certain places in the community. Personally, I think that there is an opportunity to get before government and discuss the serious issue of how the H&R, for example, does not account for constraints that we face here in Metchosin regarding sewage and water services, and also a constraint in that a large portion of the community is within the agricultural land reserve. Council and staff will be looking at ways of addressing provincial housing requirements and doing so in a manner that best suits Metchosin. We will be working through this process over the next 12 months. We will need your help and your input. And with that, I want to now move to public participation. As you approach the mic, please state your name and the street you're on, and you've got 4 minutes.
Abby Whitehouse, Rifle Point Road, and I thank you for your comments about the CNR because that is indeed what I've come to speak about. And I was relieved to see in the staff report, if I understand it correctly, that under our current OCP, we meet requirements very nearly up to the 20-year mark. That is a relief. However, I also, and I haven't read it in detail, but in looking through the additional information, I don't see anything in the housing needs material that addresses the needs of the other inhabitants of any community, but especially the rural communities, that addresses the biodiversity, environmental protection, and that kind of thing. Those things are at least as important as the requirements of humans for housing. Other animals need housing too. They need their space to carry on their lives to our benefit. The typical approach is to figure that humans are most important and nobody else counts, and that is very much to our detriment in the long term. We need to live collaboratively with the environment, not subdue and ignore it. So I hope that as this moves forward, that members of this council will make a point of and will collaborate with other rural municipalities or municipalities that have large rural portions in them. We'll make a point of bringing up the needs of the other inhabitants of the earth as well, and do your best to ensure that they are respected and taken into account along with the human needs. And my final point is that the urban communities have plenty of opportunity for putting in considerably more housing and in accordance with smart growth principles. For example, there can be condos on the top of shopping centers and parking lots. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Whitehouse. Okay. Oh, there we go.
Dan Cote, Leafield Road. I haven't read the report yet. I didn't get a chance yet. But I wondered if this council would consider changing its mindset, or at least opening its mindset from managing or meeting the provincial minimums to how can we do our bit for the problems of the world. We are not the only rural community around. There are other rural communities doing their best. The number of people that have increased in Metchosin over the 38 years that we've been here isn't staggering by any means. 2 blocks in Langford probably has more people in it than what we have increased in the last number of decades. So rather than working on this is what the province requires us to do, how can we maintain our rural atmosphere, our rural essence, and yet still help out with the problems of the world? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cote.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Frisch, and I live down on Perry Road. I'm part of a group that submitted a letter called the Metchosin Housing Initiatives Collaborative. And we wrote in with, before this agenda was announced. And our primary question was, is there an opportunity to engage and review and engage the community on the draft report? And we were fortunate to get a response right before this meeting that in fact the draft, which in the recommendation reads as in final report, was actually coming to this meeting. So our pitch is really to help support a conversation within the community before it's finalized, to look at taking from what you hear tonight, what you've received, and creating some kind of a conversation that we can have either through an informal survey process or something. I think it's been acknowledged that the H&R process it's not terribly robust, it's very data driven, it's very prescriptive. And the downside is it's based on data from 2021. So they set us up to do this 3 years later, and then they don't require the next one until 2028. So we're constantly going to be 3 or 4 years in arrears on data. So we're just never going to be caught up. So the numbers that we see, needing 285 more houses or more dwellings by 2025, is that real? How is it being met now? So we do know that there are a lot of housing units out there which aren't counted right now. I mean, we've had this discussion in the past. How can we pull some of that into this housing needs report to make it more Metchosin-centric? I think that's what we've heard tonight. A couple of the things that I noticed in there that could be strengthened, especially when the speaker previous was talking about more collaborative planning with the animals in the rural area. It would be interesting to see a graphic view of those, I think it was 37 housing units approved between 2021 and 2024, just laid over those 4 core areas that the province has asked for, the infrastructure that supports walking, cycling, and public transport. So do we have a map with where those 3 key areas are kind of in bold, where we would see the emphasis on additional density being developed in those areas? So I think that would be interesting and helpful for that perspective. And then just out of curiosity, of those 37 dwellings, are they single family homes? Do they include suites in homes? ADUs on site? Sort of what's the breakdown of that generally, and can they be overlaid on that map? So are we seeing most of this development happen in larger parcels away from those transportation networks, which is again not the objective of the provincial housing policy? So it helps to kind of bring that focus back in on those zones where it makes sense. And just the last little plug, our Hicks group is hosting an event on Tuesday, 7 o'clock at the school to just learn about the types of things that help drive development decisions, planning, bylaws, how you find out about what can happen on your property, where to go to find those rules of the road, we're calling it, across federal, provincial, municipal regulations. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Fritsch. One thing I will ask Ms. Johnson, our planner, to address is the role of public consultation in the formation of this plan. And I think what she might tell you is there's essentially no role. So, but we'll get to that. So, great. Continuing on.
Sarah Anthony Metchosin Road. Yeah, they may not. I was just thinking was going to say something before you said that about the role of the public, and there may not be one, but it's a good opportunity to have one. I mean, there's been a lot of conversation going on for a while now about these issues, and I don't think I'm really saying anything new here, but I do think it would be a good time to engage with people a little bit more and see what they want. People outside this room, people who don't always show up here. Maybe I wish more people would, but they don't always have time, and that's hard. And I think to get into the habit of coming here every Monday night is little different. I don't know, love it as much as this room does. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Cynthia.
Beth Bacon, the chosen resident. I don't have much to say because I've written what I wanted to say, but I think that we should take into consideration the new information from Mark Miller, the Minister of Immigration, that the federal government has reduced the amount of immigration coming up now by 20%. And this is deemed to cut the need for housing by 50%. So that's a game changer, I think. And I will draw to your attention that you have the opportunity to fine-tune the numbers according to local knowledge, and I hope you will do that. And that's in the planner's report. For people in the audience that don't know about this option, it says, Council may direct changes. However, prior to doing so, it should receive confirmation from staff that such changes do not fall short of compliance with the Local Government Act and regulations that or contradict the data. So actually, if we have local knowledge, that would affect the numbers. But I don't think that we need to be planning for 800 plus more people. And also drawing to your attention how skewed the data would be based up on the 2020 census when everybody was hunkered down in their mom's basement because of COVID. So income was down, and household configurations were different because of us all being hunkered down with COVID. So that was a very exceptional year. If you look at the economics of real estate, it's 2021 are really quite exceptional years, and we shouldn't be basing our future planning on those numbers. So I think you can you can fine-tune the numbers, and that's within the rules of the game.
Thank you, Ms. Bacon.
Jennifer Burgess, Duke Road. We have with us tonight a number of our group called the Chosen Housing Initiatives Collaborative. I've heard rumors of a bit of anxiety about who we really are, but I hope there isn't any. So I'm going to read out why we came together as a group and what it is we're trying to do. And certainly public participation is one of our biggest concepts. Our two purposes are to provide opportunities for learning and information sharing for all that relate to housing options, specifically in rural communities like ours. And the second point is to act as a focal point for developing and articulating innovative ideas on housing options that reflect the Metchosin residents' interests. So there should be no anxiety about our meetings and what it is we're doing. What we are doing and have done in a number of meetings so far is illuminate all the concepts that are around housing in a rural community. And as you said, on Tuesday night, we have another one. It's kind of called Rules of the Game, which is an unusual title. But it has to do more too with bylaws, what the province wants, sort of a broad perspective on what housing initiatives are. And so I just wanted to stand up and say that we really have the best of intentions. We meet in the meeting room in the old schoolhouse at 7 o'clock on the 26th, and we will meet again. And even though this draft needs report will be submitted in the form that it is submitted, it will not stop our conversation in our local community. We really need to get a handle on what it is and make sure that all sides in the community are heard about the housing issues. But I also wanted to point out one other thing to the council, partly to do with housing, but to do certainly with the municipality.
Your new minister was appointed today. Your new minister is called Brittany Anderson, and she's from the Kootenays. I find that very promising because I spent 9 years in the Kootenays and know them very well. And I think that that perspective for municipalities from someplace that is outside of the Lower Mainland is an excellent beginning for us to deal on different things. And of course, the Ecom 911 as well. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ms. Burgess. Okay. Anyone else for public participation? If not, we will move on with the agenda. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay. So, committee, we have adoption of the Community Planning Committee meeting of October 21st. Any comments, or do I have someone who can move adoption?
Move adoption.
So moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Gray. And any comments? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor? Thanks, that's carried. And then we have receipt of the minutes of the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee of October 15th. And do any comments, or do I have someone who can move receipt?
Move receipt.
Mayor Little, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. I'll make just one comment. There is a PTASC meeting tomorrow, and at that meeting we will be discussing in a further depth the Parks and Trails Master Plan process. And I've got some proposals for PTASC, Council and Committee of Task, PTASC, with developing the Parks and Trails Master Plan. So I'm going to bring that back to Council just so we're all really clear, and Council can provide further input if they feel needed, but it'll be a draft mission statement, a process outline and whatnot. So, but Councillor Gray, you had a comment?
I think the survey was done on Duke Road East Trail, and I was going through some papers and I realized I hadn't raised this before, but a resident that way was asking if there would be street lights on Duke Road if the path goes forward. And so I just wanted you to ask PTASC about that.
Okay.
I don't think we have street lights typically, but I guess it's come up by somebody who would like a trail and light.
Great, thank you. I will, in due time, I'll bring that back to PTASC. But okay, with no further comments, I'll call the question. Moving receipt. All in favor? Thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, business arising. The Parks donation program. Oh my heavens. I have to confess a bit of negligence here. I don't have much information on the individual who's requesting the memorial bench here. They have been vetted by PTASC, and PTASC has felt that this is a worthy bench. It would go outside there. It would replace the existing bench that has no plaque. And I'm asking if we can have the committee's support for this. Councillor Donaldson?
I'd support and have some questions.
Great, okay. Seconded by Mayor Little. Councillor Donaldson?
So the bench you're asking that would be removed it's not the same design as the memorial bench, correct?
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
and I do believe maybe that bench might belong to the cricket club. So it might be worth asking them. It's been there a long time and they've used it, so
Yeah.
I don't want to assume, but it might be worth asking
Okay.
whose
Okay,
bench
thank you.
it is
That's
before we just take it away, because that happened with someone's picnic table recently.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we already have another memorial bench out there,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
So this will be a second one.
Okay. Thanks. That's a good point. I will check in with the cricket club and just make sure. So, yeah.
So this will be a second.
It will replace that bench. So there will be another one out there. Yeah.
So a second memorial bench, because
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I will call the question. All in favor? Great. Thank you very much. Okay. So committee, we are now at the interim housing needs report, and again, thank you to Ms. Johnson for preparing us and also for keeping us on track with provincial requirements. Any Several of us have been to the convention of the Union of BC Municipalities over the last few years. And if you've attended those conventions, you cannot become away with an understanding of how dead serious the NDP are about housing, improving housing and increasing housing opportunities in BC. And there's also remarkable support from many municipalities throughout the province. So again, I go back to Bill 44, which is now turned into actual legislation in the Local Government Act. Again, one of the requirements is that we receive the report. And I'll just mention that word, it's receiving is not the same as endorsing or supporting. However, it is not, like I say, a nicety. It is a requirement of the legislation, and that we do that before January 1st, 2025. I put it to this committee that if we are to have any meaningful conversations with the government about this, I think receiving this is probably the best step. That's my own perspective, and we can talk about it a little further. But for now, I would ask Ms. Johnson to walk us through the HNR.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Excuse me if I keep clearing my throat. I got sick about a month ago and my voice hasn't got back to normal, so just letting you heads up. Today I'm going to present you with the Housing Needs Report for the District of Metchosin. To meet 2019 legislative requirements, the district completed its first Housing Needs Report in 2020, with the final report dated January 2021. The district partnered with the CRD and other member municipalities and worked with the consultants from Urban Matters, using provincial guidance and qualitative and quantitative data to understand the housing need in the community. When this project was being done, it included data collection and analysis and public engagement. Engagement activities at that time were conducted virtually during the COVID-19 pandemic, and engagement was through survey, virtual focus group, and stakeholder interviews. The interim Housing Needs Report will be an addendum to this current Housing Needs Report, and together they form one document and will be read as one. So legislative changes passed by the province under Bill 44 require local governments to complete an interim housing needs report using a standardized methodology supplied by the province by January 1st, 2025. The housing need supply identified in the Housing Needs Report, interim Housing Needs Report, was gathered using the HART, the Housing Assessment Resource Tools, HART, which was developed by University of British Columbia to do the H&R calculator, a tool developed for local governments to determine their housing need based on the prescribed provincial Housing Needs Report H&R method. The interim Housing Needs Report is intended to be a transition document to update projections to align with the most recent census data, which was 2021, and to create a consistent update cycle for all local governments in BC. The interim Housing Needs Report must only include 3 new additional legislative items, and these are the number of housing units needed to meet current and anticipated need for the next 5 and 20 years, calculated using the prescribed H&R method, a statement about the need for housing near active transportation options, and a description of the actions taken since the most recent Housing Needs Report. The first regular full Housing Needs Report must be completed by December 31st, 2028, and every 5 years thereafter. And when that process begins, that will be the time for comprehensive public participation and an engagement plan. And this is also when supplementary information will be included to better understand the local housing need. The 5 and 20-year housing need was calculated using the HART BC H&R calculator. The housing needs identified are supply-based and are not specific to the need by unit type or tenure. Recognizing that the housing market is dynamic, it's important to note that the information is just a snapshot in time, and monitoring and future review of the district's housing needs through future full regular housing needs reports will help better prepare for anticipated growth in the future. The interim housing needs report anticipates that the district needs to accommodate an additional 852 new housing units in the next 20 years. This figure is designed to accommodate projected growth in the district, to eliminate extreme poor housing need, to address regional homelessness, to eliminate suppressed households, and restore local vacancy rates to levels representing a healthy and well-functioning rental housing market. A build-out analysis has yet to be completed for the District of Metchosin. Staff has started this process, and it will be finalized for the potentially required OCP official community plan updates in 2025. At this point, although the number of vacant lots is not yet known within the district, that's something that staff is working with GIS on. A 2010 review of potentially subdividable lots in section 1.5 of the current OCP estimates that 405 new lots, and this number excludes agricultural designated lands, could be potentially subdivided without any need for rezoning. After adding the 2-unit entitlement, which we allow in our land use bylaw, which is a principal dwelling unit and a second dwelling unit, whether it's a secondary suite or a detached suite, the 852 required units may be able to be accommodated. This may mean that residential capacity may not need to be further increased. However, this will be confirmed in future reports. I'd like to reiterate that Metchosin is not slated for high density growth, and that there is no transit-oriented development area within the district, nor is there sewer infrastructure, and many lots are on wells. The district is outside the urban containment boundary, and as per the regional growth strategy, the district is a low growth area comprised of a mix of rural residential, and renewable resource uses. And accommodating housing capacity in the district will need to be planned for in this rural context. The provincial methodology may result in overinflated housing needs in the district, as it relies on a number of assumptions and takes a regional approach for specific indicators, including meeting homelessness, accommodating increasing population, addressing vacancy rates, and it does not reflect the historical population growth numbers or the regional growth strategy. However, this is the model that was adopted by the province to estimate a housing need, so adjusting the resulting projections is not an option for the interim housing needs report. Just a note about the 2 options that the province has given for applying the H&R method, which is to either use the HART H&R calculator or undertake the calculations themselves. 2 municipalities that I know of, the District of Highlands and the City of White Rocks, we're taking an urban example and a more rural example. They did both. They did the calculations themselves and they used the HART calculator, and the data results were the same. So this is because the calculator and the Excel method use the same data sources and methodology to produce consistent results. Examples where data results have been slightly different are more in the electoral areas, where a municipality is really small, such as Port Renfrew. They have about 276 people, And so the data had to be suppressed for privacy protection purposes. And so in that case, they actually didn't have data for certain census years. Or another example, an electoral area is where a boundary adjustment occurred. So the data was not accurate. In both of these examples, staff worked with the UBC HART team and the staff at the Ministry of Housing to conduct the manual calculations so that they were consistent with the required methodology. And in both examples too, they also, it was a combo of the HART calculator and the manual calculations.
Thanks very much, Ms. Johnson. It was really good to, no, keep going, keep going. But it's quite interesting to listen to the, or hear the experiences of people with the tools, and especially, the two examples you gave, Highlands and White Rock, using both and coming up essentially with the same. Thank you.
So the interim housing needs report includes a statement recognizing the need to improve mobility and connectivity throughout the district with regards to transportation infrastructure and proximity to housing. The district has embarked on an active transportation network plan that focuses on non-vehicular travel within the district, and a key goal of this new plan will be to improve safety and connectivity and access. The third item required to satisfy legislative requirements is for the interim housing needs report to outline the actions taken since the district's 2021 housing needs report to reduce housing need. Several items are outlined in the staff report and in the interim housing needs report, including the supply of dwelling units permitted since January 2021. The 37 units is a combination of single-family dwellings and detached suites and attached secondary suites. The breakdown of those numbers are known, but I don't have them offhand. To conclude, using the provincial methodology, the anticipated housing demand for the next 20 years in the district is estimated to be 852 additional dwelling units. OCPs and zoning bylaws across the province are required to be updated by December 31st, 2025 to allow for each community's anticipated 20-year housing demand, which is derived from the provincial methodology. The interim housing needs report before you fulfills the provincial requirements. This is just one step within a process of steps to address housing at the provincial level. Following Council's consideration of the interim housing needs report and receiving the report, the document would ideally be uploaded to the district website as an appendix to the current housing needs report, and then future reports will be brought by staff to Council regarding OCP and land use bylaw updates in 2025. The district, is required to complete a full housing needs report by December 31st, 2028. This will offer further, more in-depth insights and analysis regarding housing needs in the district. It will also include an overview of current housing in the community, supported by additional data analysis and community consultation. Just a note too about, is there a housing target order for the district? I just want to clarify that no, the district is not under a housing target order. A housing target order sets out the total minimum number of net new housing units that must be completed each year over a 5-year period. And net new means new units that are ready for move-in. And what's the difference between a housing need and a housing target? I just want to clarify that the interim housing need report numbers are not related to the housing target order, and it is not expected that the district has to issue building permits for the number of units identified within the 5 and 20-year housing need. Instead, these projections are it's non-binding information that's intended to help the local government understand and plan for the needs of the community. So, yeah, the recommendation that staff has for council today is that the planning committee recommend to council that the district of Metchosin interim housing needs report dated November 2024 be received and appended to the 2021 current needs assessment, and the staff be directed to publish it on the website. I do have further answers about consultation that's needed, but maybe I'll wait for specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Committee, any questions for Ms. Johnson? Councillor.
Yeah, so basically, basically this is about capacity. It's not about any requirement to build anything. And we have, I'm not sure what our stats are on the houses that would have potential to have suites. So, which would be a lot of them. So if we could put out there that we have 285 houses that have the potential of having an in-house or secondary detached suite, then that basically fulfills the requirement.
Yeah, through the chair, as part of the analysis that will be conducted is not just looking at vacant lots, but how many lots just have a single family dwelling, and there's the availability of having that second unit. So that will be done as part of the analysis.
Right, thank you.
Great. Councillor Gray.
Then through the chair, thanks for the report. It's pretty clear with your explanation as well today of what we're up to. I just wondered if it's as Councillor Epp is imagining, we have enough capacity today, then the revisions in the OCP would be simply to add the housing needs report into the OCP, so and that particular section, and then we wouldn't need to make zoning changes or any other alterations.
Through the chair, there would likely be a little bit more conversation. In the OCP update, it's like proactive planning to support positive social, environmental, cultural, and economic outcomes. So there's the capacity discussion, but then there's also social, such as looking at homelessness and things like that. Whether or not how that would be addressed or not, it's just a conversation that has to happen. But then there's also updates to various parts of the OCP to make it current to today's statistics. So yeah, but I mean, if we have reached the capacity can be achieved, then a discussion about changing land use designations or not, that's probably not necessary.
Great. Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you. Thank you for your report. There's a lot of information here. I was a little confused when I saw on page 3 I guess it's page 21 in the agenda. It's referring to the data from the census, where in 2004 we had 1,490 homes, and then it goes down for two more census. Like we shrink, like there's fewer owners. It goes right down to 1,425, and then we're back right up to 1,525. So that's kind of interesting how maybe the census isn't the most reliable. And why I'm saying that is sitting on both the library board and the West Shore Parks and Recreation, they don't use census when they're doing the budgets for us. They use the BC statistics. And even more accurately probably would be BC Assessment Authority. And it's been many years since we've had an inventory review, that maybe it's time we have an inventory review. We'll probably find that we have a lot of homes here and a lot of suites. And we probably would find out that we've met a lot of this. We did speak with BC Assessment Authority at UDCM, and an inventory review would probably help us a lot in this. Just as a thought.
Great. Mary Jo.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, thank you for the report. I appreciate it. I'm not was just wondering, picking up on Councillor Epps' point, what about those suites that are not legalized? So we suspect they're out there, and we suspect that there are people already living in them. Could we plead to the residents of Metchosin to say, let's make these legalized suites? And would that count towards the capacity final bottom number?
Through the chair, those are great comments. Yes, through the discussion of the OCP update and land use bylaw updates, we might see these types of things coming up. And one of the topics that might be of interest to the community is the size of a detached detached suite. Currently, the land use bylaw allows for 70 square meters. It's quite common in other municipalities and even under the Agricultural Land Commission on ALR land to have 90 square meters. So is the reason why there's these illegal suites out because of the size? I'm not sure, but definitely a conversation could be had, and other municipalities have even brought forward policies on how to legalize suites. But I think the main question is, why are they not coming in for permits? Is it size? Is it the number? Is it the building permit process? Not sure, but definitely a topic of conversation.
Okay. The second question, Chair. And secondly, and they would be at the OCP discussion, then we'd also have discussion on other alternatives. Some of them that have been discussed with the Housing Initiative group, but also carriage houses, for instance, other options that may not change the footprint or have detrimental effects on the environment, but could help with that capacity number.
Through the chair, that's correct. Yeah, we're looking at, it's not just, it's the capacity number as well, but affordability and sort of what is it that the community is wanting to see. Is there a need for more families to be staying with the Metchosin? So, like you said, 2025 will be a great year for community consultation on all those things.
Great. Sorry, I'm going to pop a few questions and then back to you, Councillor Gray. So 2 questions for you, Ms. Johnson. So I hate to look ahead because we have to deal with this, but so the next full housing needs report is due in 2028. And what it sounds like you're pointing to is that report will be much more informed by community input and basically community learning experience. One of the things, we likely will be able to update and use updated statistics, I would think, by that time. So when we get that report, the onus is on us with that report to also go back and look at the OCP and land use bylaws. That I would think.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Yeah.
So after every housing needs report that's done, so the next full housing needs report is 2028, and that's using 2026 census data. The next step is the same. The official community plan land use bylaw has to be looked at to update to accommodate those needs.
So I asked that Ms. French mentioned that this is a data-driven exercise, and I really was blown away by that when going through the results. I suppose it lends itself to consistency throughout the province, but it's quite blind in some respects. But we have a chance to do it in another few years and probably with much more enlightened methodology, I would think. So, okay, great. You touched on this a little bit, but could you just go back and what are next steps from your perspective? From the work that you'll do and what you'll bring back to us and general timelines as you're able to fathom them right now?
Through the chairs, to meet the next step in the provincial housing mandates, staff will be looking at what the current growth capacity is within the district, and will present that and a staff report to council, to the planning committee and council. And from there, we can have further discussions on what the scope of a OCP update might look like, and sort of form, terms of reference, and look at engagement plans and costs, and whether there needs to be another consultant helping, so that there is still time for other District of Metchosin priorities, other work. But yeah, that will all be in a discussed early 2025.
Okay, great. Okay, Councillor Gray, another question?
I was just thinking about that data question. And so the mayor was asking about illegal suites, and then you were surmising, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Would we be in a position to know the rationale for people having illegal suites? For example, it costs money to build it to code. Is it a money issue that people have, or is that explored somehow in the next process?
Through the chair, that as part of the scope of the OCP update, we could look at asking those questions, and there's various ways of doing that through a survey or various forms of public engagement on how answers can be derived, or we can find answers to that, or maybe not all, but some.
Great. Councillor?
I will move option 1, that council receive the 2024 interim housing needs report to be appended to district's 2021 housing needs assessment report, and direct staff to publish the 2024 interim housing needs report on the district's website.
Councillor Gray, second.
Second.
Great. Further discussion? Councillor?
Well, just offer the thought that I think we've seen some critiques given us tonight on the data, and so that's the obvious sort of problem in the methodology, which seems to be more for more dense development than we're anticipating or wanting in Metchosin. However, it's again, the numbers look like we probably have enough housing already in Metchosin for this particular exercise, and I look forward to the work that's before us.
Great. Okay, hearing no further comments, I would call the question. All in favor? Great. Councillor Merlin.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could propose a motion as well regarding public consultation. I think at this point there'll be a lot of discussion out in the community, and so I would like to propose that we have public consultation, perhaps at the school, regarding these issues, and starting with informing the public what bills 44, 46, and 47 are, what the HNR is, what the calculator was, who it was designed, and our obligations regarding the OCP and the deadlines.
Can I summarize what I think you've just said in terms of resolution? That the committee recommend that staff look at a public education and consultation program associated with the housing needs report. Sound
fine?
Okay. Okay, I'll second that. Councillor?
I'm gonna vote against it, I think, unless I hear something compelling. We just heard from the planners a whole process that we're about to embark on, a year-long process with heavy public consultation. We know our staff, as was mentioned a moment ago, our staff had time availability. I'd prefer that we carry on with what we're mandated to do under the province and pick it up in time. An article certainly in the Muse would be helpful to explain some of where we're at, but I think putting a lot of time in right now doesn't make a lot of fiscal sense.
Councillor?
Yeah, I think maybe something in the news explaining it. You do that quite well, so would be. I do think it's a good idea, but I do agree with Councillor Gray that we should wait for the process to take place as is planned.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I agree as well. Although I would invite people to attend the Mayor's Tea. That's a good place to have a conversation, and quite a few residents that don't come to these meetings probably should would be interested in that kind of information as well. So that is an opportunity for public engagement.
Okay.
Smaller, but Sarah.
Mary Lou?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily saying that staff should do it. Staff could be there for consultation, but I think as a council, we could handle it. You, councillors, you can know Bill 44, 46, and 47. We've got quite a comprehensive report on the HNR. I just think it will, I know this is going to be a year-long process, but I think it would be an opportunity for the public to come, not only to understand this, but to start the engagement process and let us know their concerns. I think more public consultation is better than fewer myself.
Yeah. And what I heard Ms. Johnson say is that public engagement is going to be baked into it. I think Mayor Lou's motion is just sort of reinforcing that, and maybe even puts some onus on council to participate in that as well. So I'm open to doing that. And, yeah. Okay, well, that said, we have a motion on the table, and I'll call the question unless there's further comments. Okay, all in favor? And opposed? Okay, thank you very much. The motion is defeated. I do want to make one other put forward a concept. I can do it as a motion in a second, but I think that there is an opportunity to engage the provincial government further in this process. Again, to talk about the thing that comes to my mind, again, our constraints around sewage, water, and the ALC. We may not win any great victories in the near term, but I think informing them of the realities that we work under as we're trying our best to meet the requirements under the legislation, I think engagement with the appropriate provincial government officials would be advisable. So I can make a motion, but any comments or? Okay. If I could, I'll float this. I would move that we look for an opportunity to engage provincial officials about some of the constraints and community characteristics that we have in the chosen in terms of meeting the housing needs requirements. So moved. Any seconder? Mayor Little? Okay.
I think I think it's a good idea. This would be written primarily to Minister Calon, so he is the new Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs. So he'd be a good one. We can copy our local MLA, Dana Lejeunesse, as well as the Minister responsible for Rural Economic Development, I think it's called. But I do think it would be important. We're not going to lose, certainly by outing us. They know we're here, absolutely. And I think dialogue with the provincial government is warranted.
Great. That's great.
Yeah, again, it seems to me there's an established process that we're in right now. And if I understood the presentation properly, we're about to submit this housing needs report to the government. They're going to respond and tell us what they think, okay or not. And then we proceed into the OCP discussion, where it looks like we've met what the province needs, which is, are you meeting your capacity? So I'm not sure right now. They've stepped back from the multiple units per lot or per property, and I'm not sure what we'd be asking for them right now. It may be that we want to talk ourselves about where we are. We heard some comments about illegal suites and these various things. I think that's perhaps the more important discussion at the moment. So I guess I'm thinking I don't feel the urge or the energy right now to get in touch, but I would hold it in abeyance until we got a real issue to say this is what we're worried about. You're asking us to do something that doesn't make sense in Metchosin.
Okay. One comment I will make is in June of 2023, we wrote to Minister Calon to, raise basically the issues around water, sewage, and also ALR, and that was in relation to some of the first things that we thought were coming. And what I think, whether our letter was, result in us getting exemption from the small scale multi-unit homes, it was a neat tie-in. And I'm really glad that we did communicate with them on that basis. So this is kind of the thing I'm thinking of doing, or thinking of in terms of this motion. Again, it doesn't have to be immediate. We don't have to charge out of the gates now, but I think as we go on, again, it's looking for the opportunity is the way the motion was phrased. So, okay, Councillor Donaldson.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying there. I think that was a very good move that we did back then, and we got a very good response from Mr. Cullen. I, as well as yourself, sat in on that session at UBCM with him, and there was some great dialogue with the other electoral districts and municipalities there. It does bode well to keep in contact with them. I don't think right now is the time, but certainly I think we should at some point. I appreciate that we've got what we need for now. We've met what we apparently were supposed to meet. I'm sure we have more than done that, but certainly to keep that in mind for the future. I think that bodes well for us to have that.
Okay. Well, the motion is I look forward to an opportunity. So, again, we can look at timing and whatnot, but yeah, I'm going to stand by the motion I made. Any further comments? Okay, with that, I will call the question. All in favor? Great. And opposed? Councillor Gray, opposing? Great.
Can I just ask for clarification what the ask is in the letter?
Well, again, as I mentioned, it's to raise the issues of water, sewage, and ALR, those in particular. But even as Ms. Whitehouse mentioned, impacts to nature. It is interesting when you build in the city, you have an opportunity to build in a place where there's already an impact. If you're building new and chosen, almost by its, by the mere fact you are going to create some level of damage and destruction. So again, even pointing out that out. So
yeah, that's good. So those are just sort of a narrative just to say we are Metchosin.
Yeah.
But now you're going to wait for an opportunity. So will we discuss that before we send a letter, and then we'll say what we're actually what the point is? Yeah. Thank you.
I think so. Yeah.
I don't mind the letter going if we talk about it at some point. Would we have a reason to send a letter?
Yeah. Great. Marilyn.
And it would also include the points that we're not a transit-oriented community.
Exactly.
We don't have big transit hubs, as well as we're outside of the urban containment boundary, as well as sewers, lack of water, such as those.
Great points, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, committee. And we're going to move on now. So the next item on our agenda is, excuse me, find the agenda here, 7B, which is a report from our planner again on the definition of a boarding kennel, and this is in relation to a property that the Victoria Humane Society bought on the northern edge of Metchosin. So, like I say, several weeks ago, I had a conversation with the Humane Society's executive director, who is here, and I'm going to invite her to come up shortly here, about their recent purchase of the land and their desire to utilize the land for the purposes of housing dogs and cats. Their plan is to do some work on a caretaker's residence, office space, intake facilities, and kennels. Now, what I've heard Ms. Stone say, and she can hopefully bring it to us again, is their desire is to keep the property in essentially as undeveloped a state as possible while using, for their purposes, the full extent of the property. So, Ms. Stone, would you mind coming up and giving us some background on your intentions and how you came to own this property?
So, first of all, thank you for having me here and allowing me to speak. I've never spoken in front of Mayor and Council, so it's a little unnerving, so bear with me. We're the Victoria Humane Society, and we save cats and dogs. And we have always needed a place to take them for when they first come in. So we do have a facility on Glanford in Saanich, and we use that facility for spay and neuter. We rescue, rehabilitate, and rehome animals. We make sure everything's spayed and neutered. We do lots of education and spaying and neutering for First Nations communities. Our biggest problem has always been we get emergency calls for seizures of animals, people who we typical thing, 32 dogs and puppies, a breeder, and Duncan needs to get rid of them immediately. We've never had any place we can take them to so we can sort through them, so we can get them into foster homes. It's important that you know that we always want them in foster homes. We're not looking for somewhere to house animals indefinitely. We would hope we can get them out to foster homes so they can learn how to be dogs and how to be cats, as opposed to living in a place, in a boarding facility. I will tell you, a wonderful man named Mr. Craig Mearns gave us $2 million to buy a piece of property as he saw the need, and he knew how many times we've had to say no and turn away animals. So we were looking at properties, and I will tell you, when we got the phone call from Carol Shiner saying that the lady up the street was looking to sell her property, she was in Machosen, and she said, this is the perfect property for you. We had gone public and asked if there was any properties out there. When we got the call, I will tell you, when we drove onto the property, I cried. We looked at lots and lots of properties, and I think what people don't understand is we want this to look like the property it is right now. We don't want to change the property. We want it to stay as rural and as rustic and as many trees as possible. We want a nice, calm, peaceful place for these animals who suffered trauma to come to, where they can run around in fenced acreages and just like be able to be dogs and learn to be animals again. And you know, we can assess them and get them into homes. But I really want to make you understand that we don't want to keep them there. This isn't long-term housing. This is getting them in, assessing them, having trainers look at them, deciding whether they can go with kids, with other dogs, with other cats, get them, do that kind of thing. So this is what we're looking to do. I think this is probably the nicest property and the most perfect place I've ever seen for us, because it's away from everybody. It's in a nice, we're the end of the road. It's quiet and there's so many trees. The only person is across the street is the where they're putting, Langford's putting in the industrial area. We can hear the blast, but I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful place, and we would hope to keep it quiet and as in keeping with Machosen. Both Bev and I, who are dealing with the property, we're both from the Highlands, and we love acreage that just looks like the rolling hills and stuff. So this is perfect for us. So I just want to assure you that we're not trying to change it. We love it the way it is. We had long talks with the daughter whose mother had passed away, who has said this would make her so happy because it would just be what she would dream of. She wanted it to either be a park or something like this. So if you have any questions of me, please ask.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Stone. And I have to say, this council had a chance to meet the landowner who passed away, and I second, or yeah, what you said. I think she'd be quite happy with your purchase and the intended use. So yes. Great. Thank you. Councillor Donaldson.
Oh, thank you very much, through the chair. Thank you very much for all that you do. I get on my Facebook reel all the puppies. That's true. Haven't adopted one yet, but I don't have time right now.
We have lots.
Yes. So that brings me to my question. What is the average age of the animals that are going to be on this property?
Well, I would think very young, simply because usually the hardest for us to find foster homes is for pregnant moms. So usually it would be pregnant moms until we can get them into a foster home. What typically happens, like last weekend, we got a call to take 3 pregnant moms. It's very difficult to find someone on that short a notice to take them. But if we don't take them the moment they ask us, they usually don't survive. Dirty little secret of BC is there's a lot of culling in BC people don't know about. And we see it all the time. Sometimes if we wait 3 or 4 days, we call them and those animals are no longer alive. We call back to say we've got fosters. And that was always the real reason we needed a piece of property, so we can say yes immediately.
So you're taking the pregnant.
So they would have until we can get them into foster. But a lot of times they'll come in like our mom with 6 puppies. They want them out that day, and the puppies might be only 1 or 2 days old. So we would take them there and keep them there until we could get them into foster.
Okay, so most of you taking young animals. You're not taking anything that's 6 years old, or
we'd love to. We take pretty much anything they'll give us, that because we don't want them to be culled. People often we often get the comment, how come you have so many puppies? The reason we have so many puppies in care all the time, and I wish we didn't, the reason there's so many puppies in care now is because of COVID. And I know it seems like everybody blames COVID for everything, but during COVID, all the First Nation communities and the rural communities that we worked on and did spaying and neutering, we couldn't get there. We couldn't get onto those communities and get their animals spayed and neutered. So what happened is the puppies had puppies, and it's been ongoing. I started in animal welfare 20 years ago, and we're in worse shape now than we were back then. We've gotten, just before COVID, we kind of gotten it all under control, and now it's kind of, we're back where we were.
Thank you.
Great. Councillor Hatt?
Yeah, I guess what I'm worried about, this might be more a question for the planner, is that what we're trying to do is right now is to vote that you be in compliance as a boarding kennel. But the board, in our bylaw, the boarding kennel defines it as dogs over the age of 8 months. So I don't know how we can, what the best way is to work it. Like, I would love to see the bylaw change. Right now we allow a wildlife rehabilitation center, and I mean, I'd love to have that changed to animal rehabilitation center, and that leaves it open or something. But I don't know what, you know, if we can just, how we can get around this and make it work.
So, Ms. Johnson, do you have any response to that at all? You do have the option to just say you're looking into it further and report back to us, but yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, looking into it further, and we'll report back. However, you know, there is options for the Humane Society to comply with that definition, if that's something that is required.
Okay. Yeah, and just to echo Councillor Epps' concerns here, we, like right now the bylaw states, and which we're trying to fit you into that, the
Yes.
definition, it's dogs over 8 months. So I think we have to be careful of that, and if it's different, if your intentions are different, then we probably have to have another look at that definition further. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is lots of animals we can put there, like lots of dogs we can put there besides the puppies.
Okay.
In the past, we've put them at we've ended up putting them at Glanford because we don't have a place.
Okay. Ms. Stone, quick question, and then Mary Little has a question. What are your timelines? When do you hope to have kennels built and animals on the property?
As soon as possible. The longer it takes, certainly the longer it takes, the more animals that die. I mean, that's the reality of our life, is we say no all the time because we don't have a place for emergency them to come. We've been working, and we're praying we'll get a building permit soon. We've applied for one, and we're hoping that comes through soon so we can start building. At this point, we're building up, we're fixing the house. The house, there was only 32 amps of electricity that came in, so we have to get power poles and we have to get all that approved. We've had structural engineers in, we've had a specialist for septic that I didn't know we had because we had to put in a new septic field. So there's lots of that happening. So I imagine it will be a while. Like I would love it tomorrow, but that's the reality of life, is not the way that works.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Marilyn.
Yeah, through the chair, I just had 2 questions, one for the planner. If we wanted to include animals of a younger age, would that not be an amendment? Would be necessary for included in the boarding kennel definition?
Through the chair, to make any changes to an existing definition requires an amendment. Just to note that if the Humane Society, that's the path that they eventually want to go down, is to have puppies or dogs that are younger than 8 months. And that's something that they can apply for a zoning amendment later on, should their intentions of the use change. And in the meantime, if they're able to meet the definition as it currently is, but knowing that should their intentions change, that a zoning amendment if that's needed. I mean, there might be a bylaw amendment coming forward regardless to address the not clear definition of animal shelter versus boarding kennel.
So, Ms. Johnson, it sounds like we should tackle this question about the definition tonight and then move on in the future to any other issues. Like that, this seems to be kind of a core issue right now, or?
Through the chair, the definition will be brought forward at an amendment that council's going to bring, or staff will bring forward.
Yeah.
Tonight is just working with the Humane Society and their proposal as it stands, and if it meets or if it doesn't meet.
Okay, very well.
And a second question to you. Thank you for presenting. I'm just wondering about your intentions to preserve the land as it is. Many of the residents of our community would wonder if you were interested in putting a conservation covenant on part of the property. I understood from the previous owner that she thought there were some really very, very big trees, and she thought they were at least 2 old-growth forest trees on the property.
We would certainly be happy to entertain that, absolutely.
Okay.
We would like it to stay as, it is so beautiful, it is so nice there. We would like it to stay as much as it is, like as close to what it is right now.
Okay.
Yeah, so happy to talk to anyone and entertain that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any, that's great.
Thanks. Through the chair, you mentioned the word septic. I wonder what happens to the dog and cat waste.
Oh, we have that, I'm gonna turn to you for that answer to that one, because she just had them out.
I'm just thinking we read about worms and medications.
Yeah.
I'm imagining
Yeah.
riparian proximity, all those kinds of things.
And, go ahead.
The septic system is under the MSD engineering firm right now, and they're looking at all aspects of animal waste, wastewater, everything like that. They're just completing their recommendations that our contractors got, and he'll probably be starting on it in the next week or 2.
Thank you. And is that that'll be regulated through the
Health
Authority, I imagine? Thanks so much.
Okay.
Gee, I forgot to start by saying welcome to the community.
Yeah. Thank you.
Welcome. I think we're quite excited too about the possibilities.
Thank you. It's been scary, but thank you.
Councilor.
I'm going to move option 1 by way of resolution. Council determines that the Victoria Humane Society is using the land as a boarding kennel in compliance with the land use bylaw and acknowledges that a bylaw amendment is necessary and forthcoming to clarify the boarding kennel definition in the land use bylaw.
Okay, so seconded by Mayor Little. Any further discussion on this, Councilor Gray?
I had a few questions for the planner or for Mr. Payette.
I'm gonna maybe tag Ms. Johnson, it's her report, and then keep on your toes, Mr. Payette, just in case we get on to you. Yeah, he's on his toes.
Thank you. So through the chair, I was wondering, just reading the report, it says that, and we heard the intentions of the residents, so I think there's a win-win here in terms of what we do. The district would encourage special care to ensure conservation of sensitive habitats. How do we do that? How does the district encourage that? Are we negotiating that in terms of this change in definitions as part of what we're doing here? I know there's a possibility like a covenant was just talked about. I heard the Metchosin Foundation's interested in talking with the Humane Society about a Section 99 arrangement or a Section 219 covenant. So there are all kinds of possibilities, but what's our job in terms of kind of meeting that from the perspective of the district?
Through the chair, discussions about conservation options on the property should be separate from the resolution tonight about the definition. So that could be something that happens between staff and the owner outside of council chambers, and an update can be brought forward to council if that's needed. The owner seems to have expressed a desire to do that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
That's helpful. I just wondered the process because I can see, not with this owner in particular, but this just the circumstance so that we would understand as a council what we're engaged in. And I'm just taking the words out of the report.
Yeah, through the chair, these would be, conversations that would be happening with the owner, like, outside of the land use, like meeting the land use requirements, so like, through the OCP or through this, the riparian requirements, and there's sensitive habitat on the property. What do you think of doing this with this partnership?
Thank you. I mean, I think it's, I guess we'll say encouraging that the district would discuss with the proponents some conservation of the sensitive habitats. And it's encouraging to hear the words of the Humane Society tonight. If I could ask my second question, you ready?
Go ahead. I have a question after yours.
The second question was construction requirements, there, again, this language from the report, requirements to minimize impacts on creeks, wetlands, and forested areas. So my confidence is a bit shaken, with our staff response to the MEAS recommendations in that regard recently about enforcing minimizing impact, in that case subdivision on wetlands, to mean proper functioning of the wetlands in our OCP. So how would staff make these requirements to minimize impacts on creek, wetlands, and forested areas? Like, what are the precise mechanisms to do that?
Through the chair, it's through, firstly, it's through review of the building permit drawing. So a site plan is given and a building permit application. Ideally, before that, there's a discussion with the owner about these are the requirements in the land use bylaw. There's a creek that runs through the property. There's a 30-meter setback for structures or anything, actually, removing trees, anything. There is also an inland wetland in this area of the property. So it's discussing what's on the property and sort of the setbacks and requirements for that. And, if they're well within the setbacks of the land use bylaw and the province, then, the site plan is sort of, it's easier to review. However, if they're proposing to be within the setback, then that's when it triggers a qualified environmental professional to do a report to assess, the proposal. But at this point, there is no development permit area, so it starts all with discussions with the owner and a review of the building permit application from the planning side of things.
So through the chair, that sounds great. And by the way, I'm completely supportive of what I'm hearing going on tonight. I'm just looking at how do we actually uphold our side of the deal here if we're proceeding. And the idea that we would have, say, follow the provincial recommendations on setbacks when the province is informing us that their setbacks are inadequate, we can do better. And then the province says, here would be a better way of doing it, the best management practices. Is there an ability for us to follow those best, to make sure we're doing what the province is looking for beyond the regulations here?
To an extent, however, this isn't a subdivision application or a rezoning application. It's the land use is zoned something, so there's regulations within the land use bylaw about setbacks to specific, like property lines or creeks or whatnot. So. A little bit limited.
Yeah, what caught my eye was minimize the impacts as opposed to just sort of do what the rules require. With the climate change and everything, we know these wetlands, these are very special wetlands on this property, as I think everyone's aware, and the maximum protection possible would be terrific. And I'm, again, happy that the owners are so interested. So I'm good with that. Could I ask about the zoning change question? You're going to come back with something for us, and would that be kind of limiting dogs and cats only, sort of the same limitations as are in for the kennel referring to dogs, of course, in its root in the language.
Through the chair, I think it'll be more of separating the two. At this point in time, there's a definition for boarding kennel, but then it says it specifically excludes animal shelter and animal pounding facility, but there's no definition for animal shelter. So the clarification is required of the question that'll be brought forward in the report is removing the exclusion of animal shelter and animal pounding facility from the definition of boarding kennel, and either A, leaving it as that, or to adding a definition for animal shelter and having a discussion about that and where that should be going. But yeah.
If I could go a little bit.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Absolutely.
So I don't think it's so much a zoning change, it's more of a change to the definition that we're talking about in the land use bylaw.
At this point, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, go ahead.
So then I'm just wondering if we change that. So I'm thinking about what the work might be done, what we might see. Maybe I'm just saying a preference for, if we do talk about it, to keep the limitations similar. I'm wondering about what our residents would feel like if we went in and changed the definition of upland zoning to allow animal shelters everywhere in upland zoning without some restriction on what's going to happen in those. So a definition, maybe the definition could match in some way. So just ideas I'm throwing around.
Through the chair, any zoning amendment bylaw that's brought forward, that has to go through a public process.
Okay.
So a zoning bylaw amendment, it would present, well, first of all, just discussion and the direction council wants to go, but ultimately a bylaw goes through first, second reading, there's a public hearing, so the community is engaged on the changes that are being proposed, and go through the public process, and then ultimately then the bylaw is either defeated or amended or adopted. But it would be at that time where the community is consulted.
Great, there'll be a public hearing.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm just thinking of everybody in Uplands, what they may regard far from the site. I think I've heard lots of support in the community exactly for the what's going on here, particularly, but wondering. My final question just relates to, I imagine there'll be this road that the animal shelter would be located on is not a very well-used road at the moment, but it might become quite well-reused. I saw a picture on CTV of some gravel going down and other things, but I'm wondering if we may need to have, there might be capital costs like road resurfacing required or things like that, and I don't know when that gets decided, if that's under the building permit process or otherwise.
Through the chair, typically not.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Obviously, I'm just learning.
Yeah.
But I appreciate the help.
Okay. Any further questions for Ms. Johnson? Great. So I will, we have a motion on the table. We do? Yeah. Okay, I'm losing track. Have we voted? No, we haven't voted. Okay. Moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Mayor Little. And any further discussion? With that, I will call the question. All in favor? Great, and that's carried. One thing I would say, thank you very much, Ms. Stone. I didn't catch Bev's last name. York. For attending tonight. It'd be great to stay in touch. I suspect you may be back when we, have this amendment come forward. But at the same time, it'd be great to hear progress as you folks move along. And again, welcome to the community.
Please come out anytime.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, sorry, Councillor Graves, Councillor Epp, Councillor Donaldson has just suggested a site visit. Maybe we should just hold off until they progress. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So now, okay, we're going to keep moving on to correspondence. We have 7C verbal updates. I have nothing really to update folks on right now. So, but thanks for the reminder. So. So we'll go to 8A, which is correspondence about the mounting block. It's a request for a mounting block in the corner of Happy Valley Road and Rocky Point. There's been some initial discussions with PTASC about this, but mainly through the chair. What I might recommend is that we officially refer this back to PTASC, who again can confirm the approach and suitability with staff, and then come back to us. The chair of PTASC has been connecting with Mr. Watkins, as I understand it, and they've had some discussions. But unless folks at the table want anything further, Councillor.
I just wondered if they've been in touch, if there's any prescribed, Councillor Donaldson would know, I'm sure, BC Horse Council has plans, legal approved plans for these, for mounting blocks.
No, they They do not. However, if there's 2 mounting blocks on this property right now, one inside the ring and one just outside the ring, there you can get all sorts of stuff off the internet. My son built me one, but there's one that, like I say, both of them that are on this property can be used as specs. One's larger than I would never suggest that, but certainly one inside the ring is fine. There's, Willowing has them. But the ones that I suggested before we had this discussion that are down on Hillman, those are ideal, those ones. They have proper treads on them, they're wide enough, they're the right height for any size horse, and they're very sturdy. Hence, suggesting commission the person that originally built those, who is an Western family.
Great.
So that's a good model for those different ones.
I keep hearing about the Hillman mountain blocks. They're legendary. So awesome and legendary.
Yeah,
Cool.
they're very good. Nice.
Mary Lou.
Yeah, just to note that those mounting blocks were constructed at no expense to the district. Mark Atherton, the former chair of PTAS, built them. Harold Pearl-Palkin and I think Ron Aubry donated the wood and the whatever was necessary to construct them. And then PTAS and myself installed them in, I can't remember when, I think it was 2022 or so. So it's a good idea to reach out to commission another one because they're excellent.
Well, it'd be a good idea to keep them the same, so that we just don't have like 5 different styles, similarly to what we do with the memorial benches. We have a continuity of those.
Correct.
So there's a standard already set. That answers your original question.
Okay. Can I make a motion to refer this issue to PTASC with the goal of exploring installation of they're actually asking for 2 mounting blocks, one on Rocky Point Road, on either side of Rocky Point and Happy Valley, with the goal of installation, exploring installation. Councillor Donaldson.
I was at the meeting where we had this discussion, and I'm sorry I didn't check back on the minutes. I don't recall 2, and I don't know where they would want the second one. Certainly I understand where they want the first one, and that is a safety factor. Once you cross the road, you're close to other places where you can mount. Not just squash, I'm just saying that certainly the one is warranted right now, but we'd have to go back to the author and ask her why she's asking for 2 or where the other placement. I don't know where that is. I'm assuming it's this side, but again, there's one just out in the field here, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. We have a seconder, Councillor.
I think it would be great to have. It could be great to have them there. But one thing whoever is installing them needs to keep in mind what the results of our active transportation plan will be as far as that intersection, where there, I think, are definitely going to be some changes as far as crosswalks, possibly stop signs and things. So wherever the mounting, if they can be fairly easily moved, then at least, I don't know, they're probably pretty heavy. So it just the people need to be aware of where to put them, that they won't impede things like crosswalks and signs in the future.
Yeah, thanks. That's an important thing to especially note in the minutes when we bring this back to PTASC and the record, that especially. So, okay. Further comments? If not, I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you very much. Okay, I'll just go to. Take care. Thank you. Just go to correspondence. We have a number of inbound emails, letters. The first is from the Chosen Housing Initiatives Collaborative. Thank you very much for your letter. And one of the things I think that is covered in this letter is your commitment to community input, sharing information, and as we heard, there's going to be much more of that as we move along. So thank you and good luck with your efforts. Love to come tomorrow, but I've got another meeting, but so good luck. And then we have some pinks as well. Thanks to everybody who wrote in, particularly around the interim housing needs report. Thanks to Ms. Johnson. Hopefully some of those folks are watching tonight and we've clarified some of the concerns folks had. So Mr. Chabot, Ms. Bacon, Ms. Whitehouse, Ms. Moore, and Bev Bacon as well. Mr. Owen has written us as well, and also, yeah, missing. Okay, great. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Epp and Councillor Donaldson, all in favor? Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I hear you. There's more coming for sure. Okay.
Another meeting. Another meeting.
Yeah.
Meeting's next week. I gotta go pee down.
Okay, see.
It's a really interesting meeting coming up.
It's usually me that ends up there, and
Yeah.
nobody here.
Well, thanks for letting me take your place today.
You're welcome.
So maybe we're ready to go, and I'll call to order the meeting of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee of November 18, 2024. And folks, we've got an agenda before us. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Yes, Councillor.
I'll move from.
Thank you. So moved by Councillor Epp, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. So the agenda is approved. We have no presentations. With public participation, would anybody like to speak tonight?
Good evening, Nicole Shicken, the Vaughan Road resident. It's so good to be able to speak at a meeting of the Environment and Natural Areas Committee. It's been a bit of a long hiatus. I think it's been over 5 months since this committee had a meeting, and that is a long time to wait for updates on the work of the committee and also for public participation. And as you know, there is so much work to be done in Metchosin to meet the climate targets laid out in the Climate Action Plan. So I look forward to more updates on steps being taken toward the priority actions that are detailed in the plan. For instance, what progress has been made within each of the 5 priority areas identified in the plan, particularly buildings. As you all know, after transportation, buildings are identified as the 2nd largest source of GHG emissions in Metchosin, and retrofitting buildings for energy efficiency is a priority action. This is given how few new builds occur in Metchosin, it just makes the retrofit work even more important. And I've had a chance, as you know, Councillor Gray, to reach out to you about the potential of retrofitting buildings like the community hall, a vital space that is so well used and appreciated, but that currently uses heating oil, unfortunately one of the worst GHG emitters, and would set a great example of energy retrofitting by getting off diesel and installing heat pumps. So that kind of model, retrofit would sure start the climate action going in this community. And as I say, this kind of concrete action can't happen fast enough if Metchosin is to reach the climate targets, which are described as ambitious in the plan. Conservation corridors also certainly play a part, and it's really good to see them mentioned in your councillor's update. However, I wonder if the proposed request around conservation corridors and amenity zoning is the most practical when it comes to ways that the district can support conservation corridors. While it may not hurt, I'm pretty sure that staff doesn't need to be told by politicians to encourage amenity zoning or to adhere to provincial riparian areas regulations. I trust they are doing this as a matter of course. But certainly there are concrete ways that staff can be more empowered to support conservation. Something that would make a real difference is a stronger proof of water policy for any proposed subdivisions on well water. With a practical policy tool like this, staff could do more around groundwater conservation. As well, the Environment Committee might benefit from closer scrutiny of the section you point out in your councillor's update, Councillor Gray, on amenity zoning in our OCP. Specifically, I'm thinking of the generic calculus that's used to determine the density of an amenity rezoning. That is the bonus lots that Metchosin gives a developer in exchange for cluster development. Currently, to determine the density, our OCP simply uses the total property size divided by the minimum lot size permitted in that zone. This abstract calculation doesn't take into account the specific ecological lay of the land, wetland areas, mossy balds, and so on. I recall when the Beckingham application was first presented to the past council in 2022, the planner at that time therefore divided the 100-acre parcel by the 5-acre minimum to arrive at 20 lots on well water. This was prior to the developers revising their application to include the extension of city water in exchange for 4 more lots. The planner, of course, had to adhere to our OCP and its amenity calculus in order to protect against legal risk. However, the math is overly generic, and I believe staff would be better able to support conservation goals if the OCP contained a more nuanced ecological calculus for determining density. That's just my 2 cents. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, let's go through our agenda. The first item up is adoption of minutes. The Environment and Natural Areas Committee of June 10, 2024.
Move adoption.
Thank you, Councillor Schutten. And seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Any comments or concerns, corrections? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. The next item is the Environment Advisory Select Committee meeting of September 24th. Just receiving these minutes.
Move receipt.
Thank you, Councillor Schuppen. Move to receipt. And anyone like to second that? Thank you, Councillor Hupp. Any discussion, questions, or comments? I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. So we'll turn now to my councillor's update. And I've got a few items on here. The first one is to report back the use of pesticides and herbicides. As we all know, there is a policy here that the district has, which is to not use these products for cosmetic purposes on district land and encourage not using these compounds elsewhere in the district. And you asked for me to take a look at it, and we did look at it and said that we think that Colwood is gone in the right direction. We looked at a number of other resources, and we think that it would be worthwhile moving further to actually ban the use of these products in Metchosin with specific exemptions for farm use and the management of invasives. So my request is that the Environment Committee recommend Council request staff draft a pesticide bylaw to restrict further the use of these products in Metchosin. And as I say, we've got quite a few resources to look at to help with that, including the Green Bylaws Toolkit. Councillor Shukin.
Oh, I think Councillor Donaldson.
Well,
Or
I just
Councillor
have,
Donaldson,
I just
excuse me.
have a question and a comment. We already have a bylaw, correct?
Policy.
Oh, policy, so we're looking at creating, okay. Because it was a number of months ago, maybe even it was last year, I can't remember, where Miss was asking about using products in our ditching, I guess, roads, road boulevards maybe it is, maybe it's not ditching, it was the boulevards where there would be overgrown of blackberries and that sort of thing. And I don't know where we are on that to date, if we are actually doing that or if we ever went through, so.
Yeah, I think what I recall is that they were concerned about treating holly in particular.
Okay.
So it was the idea that they're active in Metchosin, that's the MISC group,
Right.
Metchosin Invasive Species Cooperative. And they're clearing land and clearing invasives in parks and on private property. And one of their big focus is on holly. And the holly is cut and then dabbed with a herbicide called Garlon. And it's an effective way of dealing with the holly problem. So I think they were talking about working the ditches, and they were in touch with Public Works, and perhaps we could ask our CEO, Mr. Pyatt, just an update on that, if things have carried on, or where we are with the treatment of, or the work of Public Works and the MISC group are working together, I think.
I can talk a little bit about that. Oh, I was getting stiff anyways. I can talk a little bit about that through the chair.
Thank you.
Have been in discussion with Neil, with MISC, I believe, and he's very enthusiastic, has funding, grant funding, has purchased product, and has an application expert available. Our staff, 2 members of our staff have recently received their certificate to apply, and so together we shall meet and move along with holly and blackberry. So if we could, use the product, and our staff can do the labor, and Neil can be the expert, we have a match. So that's where we're at so far. And it's not something we need to rush into. The product, I don't think there's a shelf life so much on the product. So I just want to make sure that this goes smoothly. I don't want to have union issues. So between having experts advise and our staff doing the labor, we should have a good result. Okay.
Certainly, thanks. And I think it was holly that we were talking about, not so much blackberries. Blackberries typically are dug up. I know you're new to the coast, Bob. So
blackberry, you can cut it and you can dab it with something.
We're reluctant to use so much of the pesticides. So I think the preference would be, we could go to Miaska about that if you like.
Yeah.
So blackberries, I think the best management practice is to remove them mechanically, and then only if when alternative methods are not successful. So you go at it and you see what you can do, and if you were having trouble, then you might move to a product.
Yeah.
But most of us, I imagine, around the table and in the audience have been digging blackberry for a long time. You clear an area. You can also clear them with pigs. There's other methods. But I'm not sure that I'd be in support of using the pesticides in Metchosin. But Councillor Donaldson, you were asking a question.
Yeah, so this summer I was actually approached by the president of the Equestrian Society. Did I know that we were using this on municipal property? Because Mr. West actually had contacted MES regarding the blackberries behind the riding ring. Previously, what we had done is we had dug those out, and we have also had the work release crew come out and do that. And so the concern was that you start putting chemical on them and the horses eat them, and we have a lot of visitors that come when we're doing clinics or shows or whatever, and the last thing we want is a fatal situation. So they've decided not to engage with that activity, and they'll probably continue taking them out. Similar situation was the community garden, and I had a conversation with Mr. West where I did have to do most of the listening, but I was very clear that we will not have it actually in the garden, because if we were ever to want to be certified organic, we wouldn't be able to. So it is a concern amongst some of the community members. So I'm interested to see if we can get a bylaw on this, if that's what your intent is here with this motion.
Yeah, so we came, excuse me, Councillor Shukin.
No, go ahead.
We're just going to say we'd come forward before saying, would you like me asked to look at it? So we looked at it and we're just coming back, and if council, if the committee would like to, we say move forward. It seems to make sense in terms of the environmental protection. We're kind of off on a different topic about, well, no, that's okay, what we're doing with our invasives on our property. But I think the arrangement we talked about previously at this table, I don't know if it was Environment Committee or Council, but was the treatment of holly with the herbicide. But I wasn't aware we were using going after blackberries. I think that's another, we should use a different non-toxic approach there. That's my opinion.
Thanks, Councillor Gray. I'm sympathetic to moving ahead toward a bylaw. My only question is throwing one more thing at staff, particularly where we have a number of bylaws that are still outstanding that we decided as our priority. And with that, we've also got with staff the question of housing, the question of the school, the asset management plan, the budget, regular items, of course. And I'm just wondering if we can maybe defer this for some time. The other thing that I think would be good, you've mentioned there's a good body of information, but we don't really have anything in the package, and it would be helpful to get that out. I recall seeing the policy on June 10th, but it'd be great to see some of the other things and even relate the experience around enforcement in particular. So, but
sure.
But I don't know if we need a motion, but I'm just wondering if we might defer this for a few months so we can get through some of the core bylaws that.
Certainly, I was going to speak to that if so we brought it forward to ask council, yes, please, should we do it, should we not? Yes, come back, said good idea, and so that's what we're bringing to you tonight. I agree with you 100% that this would be after all the other things we've got listed right now. So I was looking for a motion tonight. We can go on our list and be done within in a proper time. But no, I'm not myself thinking that it would be the top priority for this district. It's simply to move the dial.
Okay.
So if you would like to entertain a motion tonight, otherwise we can defer it entirely.
Personally, I would request deferring it. And again, if there's, we don't need hundreds of pages of information, but it'd be great if there's a package from the research that Miask has done. That'd be.
Well, what I could do is come back maybe next year with it. We do have a big list. I'm totally there. It was more the idea of, did this council want to go on record to get to improve this bylaw, yes or no? And if not, then it'll go, and we can come back to it, as they say, a year from now or something, before the end of the term, perhaps.
Or even within 6 months or something like that. So
we have quite a list of bylaws, I think, that we're looking at. So
okay.
I was only it was the grace of the desire of the council that we get advice. That's the advice. And if you don't want to proceed, that's fine with me.
That's my sense of things. But
anybody else like to make a comment?
I'll just make one comment. The Bilson Watershed Habitat Protection Association had been doing some work with eradicating gorse and blackberries and that sort of stuff. So it would be interesting to hear what success they've had so far, if any of that's come back, and what methods they actually used.
Sure.
Just as background.
What I'll do is I'll bring it back. I'll see if I can calendarize it for a year from now, and you'll just check in and see what the interest level is, and I'll provide some information so if you want to look at it then. In the meantime, if staff tell us that we've done all of our other bylaws, then we'll bring this one forward.
Correct.
I was surprised when council or the committee asked that we have Miask look at it, to be honest, given the workload. Made a little.
Yeah, from the June 20th minutes, so what me asked to do was to give us advice regarding the expanding of the District Metchosin Public Works policy. The policy on elimination of pesticides and herbicides for cosmetic purposes on municipal grounds. So I'm gathering what your conversation was, is you decided not to expand on the policy, but you've decided that we should have a bylaw instead.
Correct. I guess the idea would be a policy would say, I suppose, might say, don't do this. You know, that would what we would add to it. It already covers all the district. So it'd be asking the public. The policy already says that the district will be encouraging the public not to use herbicides and pesticides. So it's hard to know how to expand the policy. It is what it is. But if council had some direct, I think we're deferring this entirely though, so because of the workload. So if you'd like to get more advice or some other idea, happy to pursue that, but perhaps at a later date. Very good. The next item then was installation of a bat box at Blaney Trail. So sometime back, a local resident offered to purchase a box down for Blaney Trail. So I talked to Mark Atherton, and at the time he was, in principle, saying that sounds like a good idea, but we need to gather some people together and go down. And the issue was, would it be feasible? Is it a good location? How it was going to come and help provide some advice. But he advised that PTASC wasn't in a position to assist with putting the pole in. He asked that it's a good idea, and the chair supports the idea of it at that site, and how that acquisition trust would help. And the question was, are we interested in pursuing that as a council? Providing staff direction to see if we can get one up there. We would, of course, involve PTASC in terms of the site, and that they're happy with that. Councillor Hutt?
I think it would be a great idea. I'm just wondering, on your request, it says that council requests staff work with HAT. I just wondered what you expected staff to do.
I think take the whole.
A role?
A hole with it that the pole goes in. And the installation typically is, it could be on a tree, but down there from the look of the trees, it would be digging a hole to put the pipe in that holds the bat box in the air. And it turned out the PTASC wasn't able to do that, and there would be the other option, I suppose.
I'm happy to bring this back to PTASC. It would, of course, we'd want correspondence just to know who we're dealing with or who PTASC would be dealing with. So, yeah. I can move that the Environment Committee recommend council request staff work with HAT in collaboration with PTASC to install a donated bat box at Blaney Trail. So
thank you. Is there a seconder there?
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion? Okay, Mayor Little.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are some dead trees as a result of the illegal cutting of the trees. So some of those poles or dead trees may be good sites for adhering a bat box to, rather than digging a hole and another pole there. There's already some poles there that could be used.
Perfect. Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So the next item is just an information piece. Mayor Little and I have received correspondence from the Sail of Sea Gull project, and a number of years running now. And just so you know, the project is happening in Metchosin lands. And kind of an interesting thing, what they're doing on the gulls is they put colored bands on that you can see from a distance, and then you can report those bands into them if you see a gull with wearing a bracelet. And they're tracking them for some scientific evaluation of their habits. They presented a talk walk last year. It was pretty interesting. Anyway, they're back in town. The next item on the agenda is a question about encouraging and connecting conservation corridors in Metchosin. And we're all aware, of course, of the work of the Metchosin Foundation, with the BC Parks Foundation, and Middleton Conservation Corridor Project, and the Merritt Hill to Roach Cove project they're working on. And as that goes on, we've heard the benefits of encouraging amenity zoning or cluster housing on subdivision properties. And we've had a number of other things going on in our area. Of course, the Shannon Nation voted in the community referendum towards establishing a tribal park at Murray Hill. And then Wheaties Beach is a key biodiversity area. Things are happening, kind of moving along in a very positive direction. And it seemed to me that it was time for us to take a public position to say that we actually like the idea of cluster housing and development. It would be a good idea, and advise our CAO of that formally. And also that we would like to see the provincial riparian area protections kept up. Now, you might ask, well, why? I've been doing some reading about the approving officer and the role and land titles, and the approving officer has tremendous powers and authority, but they don't need to, for example, follow the riparian area protections. It's not a requirement anywhere. So I just wanted it to be known that this council feels that we should follow them. That's the kind of thing, the reason why. We heard from Nicole Shoup, and she wasn't sure what the reason would be for this, and to let the approving officer know what we think about it. We can't direct him specifically in accordance with the legislation on any particular application, but it's quite permissible for us to say, we really like this idea. Councillor Shoup.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Gray. I confess to having some issues with this motion as it's stated on the page here. For a few reasons. There's two distinct issues that are conjoined in a single motion: amenity zoning, and then direction to staff to enforce the provincial riparian protection standards. They can be related, but essentially they're two distinct issues. And the second part is, I find problematic because we're talking about enforcing provincial riparian area protection standards. So standards, guidelines, so the enforcement of those, I feel again that those two things don't necessarily connect. But more so, I think before I was to vote in support of this, I would need some more background. And we get, whether it's a report, the information you provide, I mean, the default is always going back and requesting a staff report. But to me, there needs to be a little bit more from my perspective before I would back, again, the enforcement of provincial riparian area standards. I need some more information.
Sure, maybe I can tell you that the practice, we heard from the provincial, when we were looking into the question of riparian area regulations with the recent subdivision application, we learned from the provincial people that Langford approving officer was allowing wetlands to be filled in with gravel. So you just lose the wetlands. So the idea here is that we sort of let the approving officer know what our views are. We would like to maintain the provincial regulations. It's the approving officer who is in charge of that. To me, it's a fundamental issue for us to protect biodiversity in Metchosin and support the conservation corridors, which is work ongoing. And I think if we want to attract that kind of activity and keep it going, then we need to take positions on this kind of thing. I understand your opposition. Anyone else like to speak?
No. Oh, sorry, if I can just clarify. It's not so much opposition. It's, again, understanding what it is we're enforcing. So to me, the riparian regulations are fairly, I feel at some point I have a grasp on them and then it slips away. So I would want to have more of an understanding of what it is we're directing staff to enforce. So that's what I'm asking.
So, like a tutorial on the riparian regulations type thing for council?
Something like that, yeah.
Councillor Donaldson?
Question, so the provincial riparian area protection standards, is that SPIA?
There's a Riparian Protection Act,
Okay.
and so what happens is that when a development is to occur, the province says that automatically there's protections put around say a creek or a water course, and then in order to decide where say a house can go or something like that, the or where a lot will be, the landowner will bring in a qualified professional to look at the piece of property and say, if that's protected automatically, now that we're actually ground truthing, we can actually allow the development to get closer to the water course. And the qualified professionals there says, you can go closer here, can go closer there. And that's accepted by the district typically to say, very good, you're now meeting the standards required by the province. The issue for the province is that they may require them, but they have no enforcement at all. It's totally up to the district to do the enforcement, to do the keep with the standards, yes or no. Hope that helps. It may be a thought that people mostly knew about how that scheme worked. We've discussed it, of course, in camera a few times, and I thought people were aware of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Sorry, and as I understand it, there is some discretion that the QEP has in terms of defining what I believe is called the SPEA, the Streamside Protection Enhancement Area.
Excuse me. Yeah.
So again, to me it's a moving mental target in terms of my grasp of it. So I have reluctance to support it right now without having more information.
Yeah, I'm just talking about upholding the provincial standards, not some odd or unusual thing. Very little.
Thank you. I am in favor of encouraging and connecting conservation corridors in Metchosin, and I am in favor of the Shannon Nations Tribal Park. But I'm very reluctant to support this motion. I would say, aren't staff already doing that, encouraging the use of OCP Article 6.8, the amenity zoning? Perhaps our effort should be in modifying that part of the OCP 6.8 in terms of the amenities and lands, in terms of the 25% of the total area, for instance. That might be someplace where we could have the most bang for our buck. And it just feels a little bit disrespectful of our staff. We're not Langford. Our staff understand that we are not Langford, and we would never agree, the staff would never agree to filling in riparian area with stones and rocks. There is a fine line between council and the approving officer. So we get to speak and we get to discuss subdivisions when there is an amenity, when there is amenity zoning. However, when a subdivision application comes forward, it is the right of the applicant to bring it forward to the approving officer, and council is supposed to stay out of it. I just think it's a little disrespectful, and I won't be supporting the motion.
Sure, perhaps I should have said I've discussed this with the CEO and he's happy with the motion. I think maybe then we've got a few people not supporting. Nobody's actually made a motion, so we don't need to continue discussing this. I think what I might suggest is that I think we might benefit from a bigger discussion about the whole subdivision process and what I'm trying to get at here. And I would suggest that we maybe have the CAO, council, the planner, and have our lawyers come and explain to us the subdivision authority of what the approving officer does, so we actually understand that a little bit better. My understanding is that the approving officer can actually require cluster housing in a subdivision. If they're concerned about environmental issues. And I think it might be helpful for us to have a seminar like that and sort of get all up to speed as to where we're at. So maybe I'll make that motion that we ask our staff to organize a meeting with a seminar with our legal counsel and a planner to discuss the issue of subdivisions and approving officers' role, so we understand it and know where the boundaries are, so we can get educated on it, as you were remarking. Okay, seeing no seconder, no discussion. Councillor Knapp?
I was just going to say that I think, I think that we're all well aware of the amenity zoning part in the bylaws. We just went through this with Beckingham, which for me personally was a huge disappointment that we gave up a chance for that amenity zoning and a wildlife corridor and piped water. So, I think the idea of directing staff to encourage and support the use, I think it's, I really don't think it's necessary. I think staff is well aware of it as our council, and it's, I just really don't see the purpose in it.
So I'll just explain to say that this staff might be well aware of it, but if I were a staff listening to the conversation tonight, I might have my doubts about your support for those things. That's the object of the motion, to say we as a council support this. If we each speak individually, we don't amount to much. It's really through resolution and bylaws that we have an effect. And so having a discussion tonight and saying we're choosing not to encourage staff to do this is a move that might be discouraging. But I understand that maybe not sure I understand, but I accept your trepidation on the issue. Thank you. Let's move on to the next item, which is Metchosin Stormwater Management Planning. So I guess we know that there continues to be uncertainty about what's going to happen up there, but I've heard from representatives of the Bilston Watershed Habitat Protection Association discuss this with the CAO. There is an idea that we should prepare, or at least here, not decide tonight, but ask to get some idea of what might it cost to deal with water quality and flow monitoring, and possibly some other water management activities in this budget. And I might ask our CEO to speak to that.
Okay, through the chair, this past budget we had funding available for buffer land to help with the cost of consultation with regard to protection of the land via the quality and quantity of water. And so we did hire a consultant and didn't use as much of the funding as I thought we would, so we can roll over that. We could roll over that funding for 2025 through the budgeting process. I think that would be suitable. I have been working with Bilston Creek, Friends of Bilston Creek? Is that correct?
Bilston Watershed
Bilston
Habitat.
Watershed Habitat.
Watershed Protection, yes.
Lovely, lovely people. And I think that would be a good move, that we put aside some funding to help them, help us in the monitoring what could potentially be, clean water coming into the creek, but we want to make sure from the Langford construction. Okay.
Thank you.
Just through the chair, just wondering if we're getting any information from Langford, like when the stormwater detection pond was going to be chosen, we held the guarantees that the water flow was going to be the same as previous levels and so on and so forth. And I just wondered, now that it's going to be in Langford, are they going to keep us, informed about the same kind of things and same guarantees that they had when it was here?
Yeah, I believe so, and we are due for another meeting. They're probably waiting for design of their system, so until that's at a certain point, really, we have not too much to meet about. But yeah, we'll keep pushing on all of the good work that we're working on for Metchosin on that situation with the water quality and quantity. And I don't see any concern yet, but if we see any problems during our meetings, I'll bring them forward quickly. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Pyatt? No, great. Councillor Shukin?
Yeah, I'm supportive of the motion. The one thing just for clarity,
I just don't think we have a motion.
Okay. Well, your request. Yeah. Well, no motion yet. Sorry. As it's stated on the page here. The only thing that I wanted to clarify is stormwater management costs. we might just do a comma splice and say including water quality testing. Because I don't necessarily see that in stormwater management. That's, yeah. So I think one of the big things is quality testing, stormwater
Absolutely.
testing. Yeah.
Is there anyone interested in moving a motion to that effect? If not, we'll move on into adjournment. Councillor Shugan?
Yeah. I would move that the Environment Committee recommend the CAO advise the Finance Committee on potential Metchosin Creek stormwater management costs, including water quality testing in relation to the 2025 budget.
I'll
So-
second that.
Very good. So we're talking about that. And I wonder, did you want to talk about the quality, the quantity as well, or just leave it be? You're happy? I'm good to go. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I think we're done with the business of the meeting tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
Councillor Shukin, seconded by Councillor Johnson. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
hey, that's cool. You're out.